Oh, well, that was something different. I had to close my browser, sign in again, and then sign in. But hey, here we go. Hi there. No, this is not Wednesday. This is, in fact, Monday, September 11th, 2023. And thank you very much for everybody who's been kind enough to show up here tonight, here on YouTube Live. And welcome to my kitchen. If there's anybody here who is here for the first time, well, thank you very much for showing up. And for folks who have been here before, well, again, thank you for being here because, yeah, we are talking about a certain subject tonight. For the past few years now, it seems like I've been doing a live video here on September 11th because, well, it just seems to suit my mood, I guess, to spend some time talking about the events that happened, of course, on September 11th, 2001. Yes, in New York City, when the World Trade Center was attacked and destroyed by terrorists. And that, of course, was something that I know the cliche goes is it shaped our lives forever, but well, it certainly did. So, and yeah, I am here to do some cooking therapy because I've always found that to be enjoyable and rather calming as well. So, let me get started with that if you don't mind, because that's the first thing we need to do is get some chicken ready. And then after that point, I'll be able to spend some time on cooking over the stove and hopefully doing a little chatting as well. But yes, I mean, folks who feel free to start the conversation, I mean, please go ahead and do so. Essentially, what I'm looking for really is something that is not a political argument. I'm not interested in bashing the Middle East or other people or other races or cultures or anything like that, because I would prefer to have something of a kind of like what do you call it, closure, just basically getting it off our chests, which is something that I tend to do this time every year because I think of exactly what happened. So I can ask the question to everybody here in the chat, more or less. Where were you when it happened? Because I know for most of us, it seems like it was pretty unforgettable. And while we're doing that, let me get some chicken out of the fridge where I've had it. I've had it resting on a rack for about the past 3 hours, 3.5 hours actually, pretty much the way you might prepare a steak. Because last time I made this dish, it turned out it released a lot of liquid, and while it was still good, I'm hoping this at least has helped to draw out some of the liquid here. So yeah, we got ourselves a whole bunch of chicken thighs that I had previously given a light coating of salt to. And as you know, again, I've been treating it the same way you treat a steak. I've had it resting on an open air rack in the fridge for the past 3 or 4 hours, so that I hope that gives us a nice crisp skin. And actually, I should turn it over this way first and start coating it, and then go a little back. Well, it already feels like, at least, that I think it's drying out a little bit, which is good. In the oven, meanwhile, I have two large cast iron pans. They've already heated up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, that is, because yes, we are doing that recipe again, namely the one where I get to play with a cast iron, a sad iron here. Uh, as I do pressed chicken, or as I like to call it, cast iron chicken, which is something of a takeoff on chicken under a brick. The choice of recipe is not meant to be symbolic in any way, not trying to be funny or ironic or anything at all like that, other than just it's nice and easy and inexpensive chicken dish to make. And it's also one of my favorites. So that's all we really have to do is, now that this chicken's been resting and lightly coated with salt, let's give it a good rub, give a good coating of this rub here, which was actually a gift from one of my YouTube friends. I've mentioned this guy before. He calls himself the Root Boy Cooks. And with that, let's get started here and start coating this with rub, and then we will go on to the next side, to the other side of the chicken. This particular rub is nice and basic. It has, what does it have here? Salt, black pepper, um, onions, smoked paprika, chili powder, cumin, mustard, and ginger. Nice and easy spices. The smoked paprika will not only give it flavor, but also give it color. Though interestingly enough, there's no garlic here. Maybe I should get out a little bit of garlic powder as well, just a little bit, especially since this won't take very long. Speaking of taking very long, my work pager starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in a little less than an hour and a half. And I'm hoping that this will not take that long. As I said, this is not Wednesday. I'm not going to ask to take up all of your time this evening. So, still, we're off to a pretty good start here. And let me quickly dig out the garlic powder and add just a light touch of that. And there we go. We really don't need too much. There we go. That's side one. Besides, once side two is coated, we will be ready to go. So there we go. One, two. There are 9 pieces of chicken here, which is plenty, definitely. I'll probably be eating chicken for the next few days. In fact, not that I haven't done that before. And give this a nice rub, shall we say. Oh, yeah. Still, as I said, I do remember September 11th, 2001. I was at work and it happened at about just a little past 9 o'clock in the morning. In fact, was working at my office job. I worked at a cubicle in Massachusetts, actually, not in New York. I'm not an eyewitness to what happened, although I have friends who were. Interestingly enough, at that time, my girlfriend, fiance, whatever you want to call her, she was actually working. She had a temp job at a place in Boston called the World Trade Center. Yeah, there is a World Trade Center in Boston. It is not the huge skyscraper that the New York World Trade Center used to be. It was just a sizable building, but nowhere near on that level. But anyway, that's why when one of our coworkers just came by and announced, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. I mean, everybody was shocked. But the first thing that came to mind, quite frankly, was the one in Boston, where my fiance was working. So yeah, but it didn't take long to realize they were talking about the World Trade Center in New York. And really, even though that was definitely a real shock, and we did have one of those TVs at work as well, where they seem to play the news pretty much 24/7. I mean, it wasn't the type of tragedy that really made everything come to a standstill. No, that happened about 30 minutes later when the word came through like crazy that a second plane had hit. And my first thoughts were that was impossible. I mean, that just can't happen. And I remember even now thinking in my head, maybe it might have been something like debris from the first plane could have hit the second tower. And maybe people were thinking it was a second plane because of that. I mean, that was one possibility. Nonetheless, of course, as we all know, it turned out, yes, there were actually 2 planes. And we know all too well, unfortunately, that that they had deliberately been flown into the World Trade Center. As it turned out, a few friends of the CEO of the company I worked at were on the planes, and in fact, he did lose some of his friends on the planes. I never knew them. I was just I was just working at a desk job. I certainly didn't know the CEO of my company, but of course, it certainly turned out that way. So I guess you could say that day did, in fact, affect quite just about everybody in one way or another. All right, here's some chicken. Yay. So now that means we get to break out the cast iron. So, oh, that's where this thing is. All right, let's do this best as we can. Here's one. And where did my other triplet go? Here it is. Here's two. Because, yeah, I've got a big 30 centimeter, a little bit bigger than 12 inches, cast iron pan in the oven. And this is one that's from Solid Technics. I'm sure you folks have, some of you folks may have seen this before. And with that, here it comes. I better do this carefully, because this is a hot, holy cow, is this hot. Ugh. Yes, indeed. Oof. And now I get to show you just how hot this pan is. All right, here we go. 1, 2. I just move it over a little bit. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In fact, I might only be able to fit 8 pieces of chicken. I may actually have to put the other one in the fridge until later. Well, I think 8 pieces of chicken should certainly be more than enough anyway. There we go. So there's 8 pieces of chicken, and now comes step 2. Gotta get my gloves back on. Pardon me. Other people are people having connection issues still? I mean, I had trouble getting started myself, remember. So I really hope you're able to see this okay. But here we go. Ow. Holy cow, that's hot. Anyway, there we go. This iron has not been preheated. But now that we've done that, now it's time to get this over to the stove. Carefully, because this is one hell of a hot pan. Holy cow. Oh, crap. Damn it, I didn't even think of this. Let me get this one out of the way. Ugh. Crap, crap, crap. Ugh. Always something. Ugh. Fortunately, that one was empty. Okay. Good, that fit. Now, careful. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just really want to give myself a 3rd-degree burn. Ugh. No, I didn't touch anything. And in fact, I have not been burned. And in fact, that chicken will be done in 20 minutes. So the time right now is 5:47, meaning that at about 6:07, we will have chicken, which is good because now we get to concentrate on part 2. There we go. Let's get a little closer and maybe even lower this a little bit so that we can get a view now at a stargazer cast iron skillet, which has also been heating up on the stove top, so that we can work on part 2, and that would be some gravy. Hey, anyway, I'm gonna be flying a cruise line this weekend. Oh, connection all clear, Louis J. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, Rick D's birthday. I'm sure he hears this every year, so not looking forward to those days. Okay. So I was in Hokkaido, Japan that day. It was agony to be so far from my country at the time. My partner was in Manhattan, and she was giving me live reports. Wow. It must have been over the internet because it was well known that there was really no phone connections in those days. I mean, yes, it's true. They did. I mean, in that day in particular, that is. Yes, there was the I mean, we did have cell phones then because, as well known, there were a number of cell phone calls from the planes themselves. However, um, the networks were absolutely jammed. No one could call in and out of New York. On the other hand, the internet connection was actually okay. All right, wasted enough time. Let me get this. Oh, okay. Nice short cover for a nice long handle. Shit, go figure. And it doesn't even fit. Okay, this leather handle cover for the field skillet does not really fit onto a stargazer skillet. The handle's too big. So that means I'm going to have to do it the old fashioned way and just use a pot holder. All right, now let's get into part two, shall we? That's butter for the record. All right. There we go. I hope I don't have this too hot because this butter is browning almost instantly. Boy, and I only have it on halfway heat, which means I better throw something in as quickly as I can, such as these onions. There we go. I'm not going to fully caramelize the onions. That would take more than half an hour or so. But once these onions are good and soft, oh, damn it! Son of a, always something. Pain in the, ugh. Shut up. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I did forget something. It's because I'm not used to doing these videos on a Monday at 5:30 p.m. So I forgot my regular routine. Yeah, my regular routine includes taking care of that smoke detector. All right. Nonetheless, these are just some nice white onions. So as I said, once these things get good and soft, we'll be able to throw in some mushrooms. That way we will be able to have ourselves a mushroom gravy. Anyway, but yeah, we knew that was coming. Well, gee, thanks a lot. Well, I don't think the butter is burning now that we have the onions in the pan. So we should be doing okay now. Anyway, as I said, there was really no cell phone at all in the in that area at that time. So if you were receiving live updates, it must have been over the internet. In fact, I was, because yeah, when the news went out, of the second plane hitting, it's like the entire country came to a halt. We stopped getting calls from our customers then too. In fact, everybody at work was simply away from their desks and all crowded around the TV, and we watched the news reports. So we saw it happen when the towers fell. Well, we saw it on TV anyway. As I mentioned, I do have a couple of friends who were there. And yes, they did actually see it live. I did not lose any friends personally on that day, although it could be argued that we did, in fact, everybody lost, brothers and sisters on that day. That's what they could say. But we were there nonetheless when we saw the first tower fall, and then what was it? Maybe about half an hour later, maybe even an hour, but we saw the second tower fall. Oh, and things really pretty much went into a haze at that point. I think it was sometime after that, in fact, that they ordered every single airborne plane in the United States to make an emergency landing. They immediately banned all flights everywhere in the country. And Some of the people in my department were field technicians, in fact. I remember one person who ended up being stranded in Dallas for 3 days, because he couldn't, because once the planes went down, I'm sorry, once the planes landed, he was, yeah, just that. He was stuck there really with nothing to do. It was indeed quite a time. Naturally, yeah, and as you know, some things like school services and government services and so forth were canceled for at least a couple of days after that. My work wasn't, of course, and I mean, I was never, never told to go home. Although, on the other hand, it became eerily quiet for the rest of that day. The next day at work, well, yeah, everybody was in a state of shock because I also remember the next day at work taking a call from a customer, and this is where we all started having the news on constantly, day and night. We were always watching the news in those hours after it happened for at least a couple of days. And so as a result, the next day was when, of course, the investigation started. In that we got live news updates when they went after, when federal agents and soldiers and everyone went into, started by cordoning off the parking lot in Logan Airport in Boston, because yes, the planes had taken off from Logan Airport in Boston, and they found the van or vans, I forget if it was more than one that they had used. And there were things in the vans, like even things like maps, flight plans, and other things like that. And then shortly after that, they found the hotels that they had used, and they started going from there and branching and moving out as fast as they could. So when the next day there was a raid on something else in the Boston area. I think it was the local home where they had met or had their meetings or something. So yeah, we were getting live updates from then, and I remember being talking on the phone with a customer, and then pretty much as we were doing it, I said, "Hold on, something's happening, something's happening." So, and this, of course, was also where rumors started that unfortunately turned into conspiracy theories, which I'm not going to go into that much because most of which you've heard before, and most of them are not worth repeating. There was a rumor, for instance, that besides the four planes that did actually crash, as we know, Flight 93, of course, the one that didn't make it because the passengers revolted and caused the plane to crash prematurely. The one that hit the Pentagon, yes, it was a plane that hit the Pentagon. It was not a missile. That's one of the conspiracies. Um, Likewise, there was not a fifth plane shot over the Atlantic. There was a lot of confusing news reports, and there were even reports at first of a fifth plane over the Atlantic, and then reports that it supposedly had been shot down by the U.S., which is not true at all. There never was a fifth plane. And the next day, rumors started going around that the feds had allegedly arrested a second group of terrorists trying to board another airline flight, which was also not true. I mean, obviously, if it was true, I mean, it would become pretty much as common knowledge as the rest of the events of that day. But I'm not going to dwell on the conspiracy theories. Rather, again, everybody was in a state of shock that day. Cynthia R., I was delivering pizza in those days. It was freaky driving all around, no planes in the air for I don't remember how long. Yes. Silva 569, as kids, we used to go into the cockpit during flights to look at all the cool stuff. Yeah, they never do that. Yeah, no chance of that ever happening. Boy, that's certainly true. Second tower fell when I was on my first break at work. They eventually brought out sets so we could monitor it while we worked. I was on a landline between my partner in Brooklyn and me in Japan. Oh, I see. It was so horrifying. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I get it. So, in other words, you had an open phone connection And I guess you did the smart thing and stayed on the line, because if you were disconnected, I'm assuming, and I'm sure you knew that meant that, oh, by the way, it's okay, a little less than 10 minutes to go for the chicken. 6:07. Um, what was I just saying? Oh, yeah. You probably knew that if you hung up the phone, you never would have been able to get in touch again. Meanwhile, these are doing good. Time to throw in a whole bunch of mushrooms. And fortunately, these mushrooms are going to shrink. Good thing, too. At which point, then, once the mushrooms have shrunk, we'll be able to make ourselves some gravy. Yeah, no, mushrooms don't shrink as much as onions, and there are other, or spinach or the like, but they do shrink. So that's why I'm not worried about overcrowding the pan right now. Okay, but no, also the butter did not burn, fortunately, because, I got the onions into the pan, and that helped. So it helped to cook the onions. Yeah, it looks like they're already starting to shrink, in fact. So we're doing pretty good here. Yeah. But yeah, that was indeed quite a time. Something, yeah, we'll all remember, yes. And we were in really something of a state of shock, at least for those first couple of days. I mean, I did go to work and I did my job, talked to customers, but of course, it was the only thing anyone talked about. I mean, there was really no other news. There's nothing else to talk about. Not our lives, not our families. It was all about New York. And it was strange. Even though I lived in Boston and I had only seen it on TV, I was actually getting these visions. No, I'm not talking about like the type of visions that so-called psychics are supposed to have, just these images in my mind. When I looked at the two tallest buildings in the Boston area, which at that time were the John Hancock Tower and the Prudential Building. It's like I would get these images of planes crashing into those, which is odd because I didn't see the planes crash live. Yet I could kind of like see it in my head or in my mind. And it was like that for a good couple of days or so. But yes, I remember taking the train, the T, into Boston over those couple of days. And as you said, everything was so eerie. It was so quiet with no planes in the sky. And a lot of people were just staying home. People just weren't out. I finally got sick of it to the point where around the third day or so, I said, enough. And I turned off the TV. Because really, after that, I mean, about 99% of the rest of the news after it all happened was talking heads. You know, the kind that makes us all just so tired, just talking and talking. We brought in these experts. We brought in these experts. We are having this debate and so on and so on, all to fill time on the air. And I finally got sick of it, as I said, by about day 3 or so. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, these are baby Bella mushrooms. I cut up 10 ounces of baby Bella mushrooms. And yeah, they are shrinking. So things are doing pretty good here. About 4 minutes left for the chicken. And in about 4 minutes, you will see why I love making this dish. Because even though it did take at least 20-25 minutes or so to preheat those pans to 500 degrees, it's still only going to take 20 minutes to cook 8 chicken thighs. Oh yeah, they're chicken thighs for the record. I have done this with chicken breasts and they've also worked great. I think because they're pressed between those two iron pans, they can't really give off much liquid. So they remain juicy. But I prefer dark meat anyway because really, as you know, dark meat just simply doesn't dry out. So that's why this is going to be a nice chicken dish. But I made a killer chicken parma. Oh, that sounds good, Camp Guy. Homemade marinara, nice. Dried cayenne pepper, pounded chick breast coated with Italian breadcrumbs. That all sounds good. My office is now 3 blocks from World Trade. I truly can't even imagine being down there on 9/11 for that unspeakable tragedy. Yeah, because you know how that it was just this big pit of debris. I mean, besides the fact that the entire area for what, quarter mile, half a mile, maybe even all around was completely covered in ashes, debris, a lot of dust and everything like that that took a long time to clean up. The actual smoldering remains of the building itself remain hot enough, if I remember right, to melt workers' boots for weeks after that. It was still smoldering underground, and there was, of course, no way for them to get underground and cool it off. So all they could really do was, do their best to try to keep it under control. The search for survivors lasted about, what, 4 or 5 days, I think. And apparently there was one instance, I think, and only one of a case of a survivor being pulled out of the wreck maybe a day or two after it. There were no other survivors, unfortunately, other than the people who got out before the towers fell. Yes, we know about the 400 firefighters as well who lost their lives on that day, and that's yet another thing, of course, that we'll hopefully never forget. These mushrooms have turned out nice. Only about 1 more minute. Cool. And oh yeah, in case you didn't know, or did I say this already, this is a Stargazer 10-inch cast iron skillet, which, as you can see, has reached the point where I'll be able to make gravy in this, and it'll be a nice gravy stuffed with mushrooms. But no, the mushrooms shrank nicely. And that was a 10-ounce packet of mushrooms that I sliced up, along with 1 onion. But yeah, this is going to be quite a gravy, that's for sure. I love using the Stargazer. This thing is so incredibly smooth. It's like everything just slides across the surface. All right, we are at about that time. So turn off the heat for the moment. Reposition the camera again. Raise this a little bit. Okay, move these out of the way. Keep your workspace clean. Oh yeah, there's. All right. Lower this view a little bit so that you can see it. And gotta be careful. Remember, this thing is awkward and heavy. So yeah, I'm not being very smart making this, but when it comes out, and I haven't killed myself yet, it's great. Here it comes. Woof. Holy cow, this is hot. All right, lift both handles up on top of the stove. Close the oven and do it. I like this because the handles are easy to get to. All right. Now I can move these other hot pans on top of the stove. Notice how the sad iron actually makes an imprint in this. All right, and here it comes. Come on. Uh-oh. Might have a bit of sticking. Let me get my spatula here. There we go. A couple of pieces of skin stuck, but that's about it. Let me get this over because this is hot, hot, hot. Holy cow, this is hot. Ugh. But there we go. Ooh, not bad for 20 minutes. All right. That means now I get to take this out of that hot pan. All right, we're not quite done anyway because I still have to finish that gravy. And where did my tongs go? There they are. All right. So, 1, 2. Boy, all of this pan grease. You know, I should probably put this into the pan to make the gravy. 3, 4. There's 4 here. 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not bad. I could, and I have, just eat it like this. Oh yeah, and one more thing, if you don't mind, and then we will go back to the gravy, is a couple of comments in the videos I've done of this have claimed the chicken was undercooked. So let's get out the old probe thermometer, shall we? And this is shooting up past 180 degrees. So there we go. And the nice part is this is dark meat. This one's actually shooting past 190. So yeah, this is dark meat, which means this is going to be just fine. It's at the point where it's going to pretty much fall off the bone when we have it. All right. Okay, now let's reheat this up and then turn this back on. Poof. There we go. Get our angle right. All right, where was I? Oh, yes. I have lots of charcoal in my prepper stash. Here's the spatula. Now I can continue, more or less. Once this thing is good and hot again, we will just be able to throw some of that grease in and start ourselves a roux. All right. Okay, metal table is nice outside, no more bending over. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so maybe you should oil the top skillet next time. That might not be a bad idea now that you say that. Gunter, a few embraced and jumped. Oh, yeah, the people who jumped out of the World Trade Center, and yes, it's true. There is indeed photographic evidence, which I never did go out of my way to find because I have no need to find it. I mean, I know all too well that it happened that day, and I trust my sources. Once again, that's all I will say about that. All right. I'm amazed how much my 10-inch large skillet weighs. Yeah, that is a heavy pan, no question about that. Yeah, it's hard to believe it was that long ago. Tell me about it. 22 years ago. 22. There are indeed people who were born after that day who have been old enough to drink for a year. Not meant to be funny, just kind of like making a point. Yeah, 22 years. Whew. And it's hard to say really if we learned any lessons from it because Even though people hate it when they say this, you might even say, unfortunately, that the terrorists won. And I already said I'm not going to get into a big, long political argument over that. But number one, they accomplished what they set out to do. I mean, not just to destroy the towers, but more importantly, to make their statement, to send terror into the United States, to attack our economic heart, and really to pretty much change our way of life. And they did. It led to 21 years of war. And that's why, again, I'm not getting into politics. I'm not going to get into details about it. No, there are many places where they're still arguing over that. I'm just saying this is unfortunately what happened. I will say my brother was a veteran of both Gulf Wars, including the second one. So he never went to Afghanistan, but he went into into Kuwait in the first Gulf War, and he went into Iraq in the second Gulf War. I never asked him for details of what happened, what he did. I only know that yes, he did see action, and that's about all I really want to say. It was a sad time for everyone, and I guess it still is. So, nonetheless, all right. One way or another, though, I mean, at least we could definitely say that we are not forgetting, trying to take those lessons to heart as best we can. Let's throw some of this grease in there. Just a little bit, anyway. While I'm at it, let me see if I can scrape up some of those bits from the pan. Bond, I guess you could call it. There we go. Scrape up these little pieces. But no, I'm not getting into politics. I'm not going to get into some kind of a sermon about either America being terrible or America being great. We'll save that for another time. Brown bits from the pan. All right, now that we've done that, throw in some flour. This is the part where I don't want the flour to do that. You know, it always does that the first time. That's probably enough. Probably about a quarter cup. No black and white thinking. Yeah, no burn bits. Yeah. All right. Anyway, nonetheless, I mean, again, all we could do was move on, from that time. It's like eventually we actually got some thinking done. As you know, we actually started taking some action. That's when the war started, though, like I said, I'm not going to get into politics over that, as well as other changes that still take place to this very day, as you know. I mean, we treat terrorism very seriously, whether it comes from abroad or within our own borders. Again, no, I'm not going to say much more than that. However, it was so crazy that two things. Number one, there was another major plane crash in New York City only about a month after the World Trade Center. And no one remembers it, even though at least a couple of hundred people or almost 200 people died in that crash. It was a major crash. But because we were all still in shock from that disaster, it's like all we could say was, well, at least it's not terrorism. I know it's strange and not fair to the people who did die in that crash, but unfortunately, that's how a lot of people think of it that day from that time. Yeah, that show's definitely affected our thinking, all right. All right. Let me dig out the milk. um, there we go. Sorry. Even so, uh, all right. So far, so good. Meanwhile, these mushrooms actually look pretty good right now. Let us start throwing in some milk and go from there. Uh, there's a song by Peter Gabriel that I play every year, and I haven't played it. I'm going to have to do this pretty much as soon as this live video is done. Look it up and you'll see it easily enough. Peter Gabriel, and it is called I Grieve. It says a lot. He did not write it for September 11th, but it seems as though every word of it applies. And a lot of people, myself included, do consider it to be a proper memorial song, I guess, for September 11th, because it's really all about the grief of suddenly losing the ones you love. I am not a fan of knee jerk patriotism. A lot of stupid patriotic stuff came out of that day, unfortunately. Yeah, we know about the phrase "let's roll" that was supposedly, I don't think they've ever proved it really happened, or maybe it did. Spoken by one of the persons um, on Flight 93. Yeah, I saw that movie, Flight 93, which was actually very good. It simply tried to be as realistic as possible. No one can say if it was. Certainly seemed that way. It did not seem to exaggerate anything. It even showed the fact that the plane had already crashed even before the FAA and the federal authorities really knew what was going on. So yeah, I mean, it was certainly accurate in that respect. So that's that of the different movies about September 11th. Probably my best recommendation would go to that one. Go to Flight 9, no, United 93, which I'm sure some folks probably have already seen. Meanwhile, hey, that didn't take long either. Looks like we've got some gravy here. So things are looking pretty good here. All right, let me lower this again. In fact, I think we may already be at the point where I could turn off the heat. That sure didn't take long, did it? Raise this a little bit. Yeah, let's turn off this heat right now. That's the thing about gravy and cast iron. Besides turning out great, though I should probably throw in some salt and pepper. It can get very thick very fast, as you know. So I'm almost certainly going to have to add some more milk even before even before I serve this. Salt, pepper. Folks usually put Worcestershire sauce in their gravy. I'm not sure if I need it. I mean, this thing certainly looks pretty flavorful, if you ask me. And I'm a fan of keeping it simple. There we go. But anyway, yeah, my cousin did 3 tours in Afghanistan. Well, I'm glad he made it. Yeah, that's some thick gravy. Well, that's what I just said. That cast iron tends to make some really thick gravy, which is why I've just put in a little bit more milk right now. Yeah, my gravy, unfortunately, I'm still practicing it as well. And like you said, it does tend to be a little over thick. And you saw yourself, you only added the typical quarter cup of flour. Still, this is looking better now. Also, remember this is stuffed with the mushrooms and onions as well. All right, maybe just a wee bit more milk, and I think we'll be done. But yeah, it has been 22 years since September 11th. Oh, things have really gone, who knows, since then. I mean, we had a war. I mean, they used it as an excuse to invade Iraq, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Which did lead to the world being rid of Saddam Hussein. So, for better or for worse, that was a good thing. They eventually caught and killed Obama bin Laden, Osama. I can't believe I just said that. Osama bin Laden. The circumstances around that, well, like I said, I won't get into it. I'm just, yeah, I guess, giving a brief synopsis. And we have just, well, moved on because that's all we can do. After the last couple of years, though, I'd say we still have a lot of moving on to do yet, which is probably the reason why we should still continue to remember September 11th. Not just on any 5-year dates, not like what year is it now anyway? 22. That's why I do this every year and I'm not waiting until the 25th year for no reason at all. Because we still have a lot of learning to do, all of us, myself included. And here's hoping that we can eventually finally learn some lessons and move on. But speaking of moving on, I'd say at this point, this gravy looking any better? I think it is, frankly. So we are at about the point. I graduated in 95 and was still in school when it happened. Even so, needless to say, we will all remember when it happened. I mean, I guess it's why it's kind of like until September 11th, I guess the Kennedy assassination was the other event, the other tragedy that everyone remembers. Although arguably you might say the same thing, I guess. Let me try to do this right. About the space shuttle, the Challenger. I mean, those of us who saw that will certainly always remember it. I'm not sure though if there has yet been a disaster since 2001 that everyone will say, I remember where it was. Maybe, if I might say so, maybe January 6, 2021. Well, I suppose it's possible, but that is again a discussion for another day. What we have right now, though, is some chicken. Cast iron chicken and our our mushroom and onion gravy. And that certainly, I mean, this really did not take very long. I took my time and it took almost an hour. However, I've done this before. You could have this entire thing done beginning to end in only 30 minutes. So, as I said, I just took my time. So, this is certainly the type of thing you could very well make on a weeknight. It's that fast. It's really faster than takeout, quite frankly. Definitely less expensive. And from the looks of it, I'm not sure you could do any better because here is our hot gravy going over the chicken. Uh, and I'd like to think of the different ways to remember September 11th. Well, an American dish like this, because it's chicken with gravy. I'd like to think it's probably not the worst way to remember it. All right, yes. Do you need a roommate? Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah. Now plate mine with some turnips, greens, and cornbread. You need some biscuits with that. Have you ever made Arkansas fried chicken? Not yet. I've got this incredibly long list of things that I still need to make, but I'm working on it. Depends on if I'm smothering meat down or pouring over something. You be you. The 10-inch deep is the perfect size for a 5-pound whole chicken. Nice. In case of extreme cold, pitch your tent inside your house. Shit. Bring the Dutch oven in. Okay. The internal temp, Chris McGee, you asked, what's the internal temp? I did measure that on camera, and it did actually, as you saw, went to anywhere from 180 to 190. So this chicken is definitely done. And remember, it's dark meat as well. Positive food news from here. I used fresh thyme and rosemary from my rooftop container to make a carrot cauliflower soup. That sounds good. My husband saw the Challenger live and called me at work. When I told my workers, they didn't believe me. Yeah, I believe that, unfortunately. Uh, well, what can we do? I mean, we have to keep living our lives. We have to move on. Not just move on. I mean, don't forget about it. I mean, we certainly have to always remember, and we will. But all we can do is, well, as I mentioned, Peter Gabriel, as I said, I'm going to definitely post that song as well because it really says a lot. Life carries on in the people we meet and everyone that's out on the street. They say life carries on. So all we can do is carry on. And I thank you very much for taking the time to drop by here this evening as well and spend some time reminiscing about that day, September 11th, 2001. And I hope you've enjoyed this as well. I mean, as you can see, we ended up producing some nice chicken. I'm definitely looking forward to chowing down on this. So thank you everybody for taking a few minutes out this evening because I know it's only a Monday evening and we have a lot to do. So thank you to Beth Button and thank you as well. Well, Bell's Black Cats rules. I'm about to end, so you can watch the replay. That's the best we can do. So passed on a large 15 at $500. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Gunter 45. What would you say is a fair price? I can't answer that. What would be a fair price for you? If you absolutely need a large 16-inch, maybe 200 if you absolutely need it. But 500, yeah, that's overpriced, definitely. So I think you did the right thing. Yeah, I was 51 when the election was stolen. Okay. We will get into that another time. Thank you very much. And having said that, I think it's about time for us to head out and enjoy our evening. So thank you, everybody, and thank you as well. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was more than happy to give a place to share and reflect because, well, I don't think that's a bad thing to do. So I will. Everybody have a good evening, and of course, I will see you again on Cast Iron Wednesday. So thank you for everybody for dropping by, and have yourselves a good evening.